On the playground, it's the small moments of discovery, laughter, and shared joy that build up to the big aha.
On your mark, set, go!
The discovery that disability or no, they are all kids who love to play. Whether you're going to an inclusive playground for a longer play date or setting up a series of recess moments on your campus, here are some tips on supporting the play. Some of your students without disabilities will be engaging with students with disabilities for the first time. It's good to acknowledge this new experience with positive reinforcement prior to and during the day of play.
And there you go. See how you can stand nice and tall there.
It's okay to be nervous. New experiences and getting to know new people can give you butterflies. It's okay to not know what to do. If you've never talked to someone who is nonverbal, it might take some time. Once you start playing, you will learn how to communicate in a new way. Remember to stay with your buddy groups, and buddy groups can play together as long as they all stay connected. Most importantly, have fun. Be sure to review your buddy guidelines with your students. We can't emphasize enough how important it is for the adults to model the behavior you want to see your students emulate. For example, be the first to reach for the ball and start playing catch with a student using a wheelchair, even if you don't know how to do that at first. If you jump in, your students without disabilities will do the same. They will quickly adapt their play for successful interaction.
Whoa!
Students with disabilities will also be engaging socially or physically in a way that might not be familiar or in their comfort zone. They may be playing with general education peers for the first time. Ask the special education teachers, special education assistants, and healthcare professionals for support, tips, and clarifications specific to their students.
And we are going to convince her to get up. Okay, so you're going to sign stand up.
They know their students and are a great resource for sharing communication, physical, and personality tips that will help the students without disabilities learn how to connect to their peers through play.
Where is it? Do you know where it is, or did you lose it? Is that a finger?
Here are some tools we have found very helpful in supporting children with disabilities at play. Let them take the play at their own pace. Trying to rush into play if they have autism or speeding up their play physically can be overwhelming. Allow the students to explore their buddies and the play space at their own pace and teach their peers to do the same.
Good job.
Once they are paired with their peers with disabilities, allow them to parallel play if needed. Simply playing side by side at first with their buddies, digging in the sand, blowing bubbles together, gives them a non-threatening way to get used to their buddies. Other parallel play ideas include a craft activity, sidewalk chalk, and simply exploring the space together. Encourage buddies without disabilities to adapt their games. You can play catch with someone who doesn't have use of their hands. One buddy can throw the ball, and the other can help his partner to catch by placing his hands over or next to his partner's hands. Use the equipment creatively. Have one buddy at the bottom of the slide, one buddy at the top, and roll a sensory ball up the slide. Sing while you swing. Bury an object in the sand and have the buddies dig for treasure together. The combination of play equipment and toys are endless.
Oh, awesome. Nice That's job. A lot of sand. Yeah, look how fast it's spinning.
If a student is using a wheelchair, remind his buddies to not stay behind it all the time. One student can push and the other can walk next to the student using the chair. Or one can push the student using the chair and chase the other buddy throughout the playground. This is a good reason for the 2-to-1 pairing ratio.
So you stand here and then grab her hand and she'll come up that way. There you go. See?
That's also a good way to use the swings. One buddy can push from behind the swing while the other pushes from the front so that the student using the chair can see his buddy. That way, they all get to see each other and connect.
You want to go big or small?
And then when we
Big?
had an empty swing, I couldn't find it. So if he comes
Yeah,
back, he
he
can
can go big
he can switch. Okay.
Just remember to station those parent volunteers at the swings to keep an eye on traffic. One very important point to note, please remember to have only the special education teachers or the paraprofessionals lift the students out of the wheelchairs into the swings. Peer buddies and parent volunteers cannot be left to that task. We discussed communication in Chapter 5 when introducing students with and without disabilities. During the inclusive playdate, continue modeling communication for general education and special education students. This is especially important for students who are emerging or nonverbal communicators. Talk directly to the student with a disability. A common mistake many people make is to talk about that student in front of him, especially if the child is nonverbal.
Oh, show me how she's doing it. Show me how you're doing it, Savannah.
Show his general education peers that he understands what is being said. Direct communication shows respect for the person.
So, Charlie, we're going to get up and we're going to explore the playground with your friends, okay?
Talk to the buddy with a disability as a peer. Even when a child seems smaller due to his or her disability or is nonverbal, that child still wants to be spoken to as a peer and not talked down to.
You know, the biggest thing they want you to know is they're not babies.
Almost all children, regardless of disability, struggle with being spoken to as though they are younger than their age. Help the students communicate through play. Roll a ball towards your buddy and say his name. Sing a song with his name in it while you push the swing. Keep communication playful and don't underestimate the power of singing and music.
Following McKenna, 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 following McKenna, wherever she may go.
Empower students with disabilities to lead the play. Find out what that student's strengths and likes are. If you engage him in what he loves to do, he will be able to share that with his peers and feel more comfortable directing the play.
Everyone together now!
This simple beat dissolves misconceptions and creates a reciprocal relationship. Some students who don't use words may become frustrated and feel unheard in a verbal conversation. This might result in negative behavior, throwing sand, pushing someone, yelling. All of these behaviors are a communication for all children. If the student uses sign language, ease the frustration by asking the special education staff to teach the peer buddies key signs. Find out what physical and verbal tools the special education teacher uses in the classroom to set boundaries and reinforce positive behavior.
She can point to say that, but she thinks like you.
Share those tools with the peer buddies so that they have a successful experience together on the playground. Students on the autism spectrum or with sensory processing disorder may have echolalia. They may repeat a phrase or a word that you just spoke back to you. Just remind their general education buddies that they have a different way of communicating and that they understand what you're saying. Be mindful of what gets said around the student who is nonverbal.
Warner, is that your buddy? Yeah, it's a Junior. Do you know Charlie?
We know general education students are curious about their buddies' disabilities, but we remind students that not everyone likes discussing their challenges. In fact, most of us feel uncomfortable talking about what we struggle with. Avoid questions like, what does my buddy have? What is wrong with my buddy? If possible, the special education teacher can come into the classroom and answer more specific questions about disabilities without identifying the specific student. Remind the special education staff to avoid using special education speak or language only they understand. Students and staff in the general education world don't utilize terms that are commonly used in the special education world. Also, we advocate reminding staff to identify the child first before the condition or resulting behavior.
Now, JJ is a runner. Here, run off.
He has lots of energy. You guys have energy?
Yep.
Rather than saying Sam is a scratcher, a behavior that might result from lack of impulse control or communication frustration, try using positive terms to help the general education students and staff members to better understand the child. For example, when Sam gets frustrated, he reaches out and scratches because he can't tell you he's frustrated. Let's watch Sam's hands and face to find out how he's feeling. You can relate the child's behavior back to the emotion or experience that caused that behavior, rather than labeling Sam in front of his peers. Emphasize abilities as you play. Reinforce the abilities with all the students. Sam, you're a really fast runner. Who else loves to run? Exploring what they can do reinforces identity and similarities.
You know what? Riley is such a maniac that, listen to this. She had to have double brakes because she was taking her brakes off and wheeling around the bus. So these guys are she's very capable, like you.
Music is a great way to communicate. We bring hand drums and other small handheld instruments to the playground. Maracas, castanets, egg shakers. Gather a few buddy groups together and form a band. Sing songs that are familiar to general and special education students.
I can hear you! Hey! Here!
Once the students are paired, we start the play date by allowing them to explore the space together and gravitate towards what they love. We recommend keeping the play as child-directed as possible to keep the socialization organic. However, if the buddy groups start to drift away from each other, organized activities can serve as a way to bring them back together. It's also helpful for students with autism who may need a more structured activity to feel comfortable. You can also utilize icebreaker activities either at the beginning or halfway through the play to help the buddy pairs get to know each other better. Visit the games section in your guide for suggestions and adaptations. Parents can be great allies in supporting your inclusion team during the play dates. A handful of parent volunteers can take the pressure off you and your staff. When preparing them for their roles as volunteers, we also remind them that this is their child's time to experience their peers. Pairing parents with their own children can alter the quality of the social interaction.
To kind of keep with him, and maybe mom gets comfortable with you guys, but that's what she's going to wait for, is to make sure you're, kind and going to be good to him.
If parents do enroll to help, here are some ways we utilize them on the playground. Running craft activities or play stations, bubbles, music, etc. Watching the swings to ensure that everyone gets a turn and making sure no one walks in front of them. Or keeping boundaries around the play space if we have any students with autism who may prefer to wander.
Let's stay on this side of the cement. Let's stay over here.
If the differences between the students with and without disabilities are vast, there may be a sense of overwhelm for either set of students. With general education students, check to find out what specifically that student is struggling with.
We don't know if he wants to go there or there.
Well, where do you guys want to go?
Jake?
Let's help him explore the playground. Should we do that?
They may react to extreme physical differences, are afraid of making mistakes, or are afraid of physically hurting their buddies.
I'm scared I'm gonna show her out. You ready?
Find a task that is related to the play and peers, but doesn't require direct interaction. For example, general education students can be the field reporter, observing the peers in play, and then you can ask them to describe what they observed. Let the student play independently to catch his or her breath. Or create a game and let that student act as a referee instead of playing the game. These strategies work for special education students as well. Many with learning disabilities who lack social skills find the direct socialization overwhelming. If students do play independently, we always circle back around with them after a short while to re-engage them with their buddy groups. Staying together and working through the discomfort is a process with incredible benefits. In our next chapter, we'll speak specifically about how to create a great play experience for students with autism, as well as their buddies. But first, here's a review of all the information you'll need to have a successful play date.